Many kids are heading back to school next week. The state of our education in Michigan and how to improve it is a critical issue facing all of us this year. We debate what needs to happen next. MiWeek starts right now.
Did you know Roush Enterprises was selected by Google to assemble a test fleet of 100 prototype self-driving cars in 2015? It also produced the new Domino's delivery cars. And speaking of Domino's sells well over 2 million pizzas per day around the world, and half of their sales are digital. These are just some of the ways Michigan's pioneers started out as small companies with big ideas.
We are business leaders for Michigan. We are committed to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, Kraft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding for this program is provided by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing.
Hi there and welcome to MiWeek. I'm Christy McDonald. Thanks so much for joining me. Thousands of families across Michigan are enjoying their last week of summer before school starts next Tuesday. So we're devoting our whole show tonight to education in Michigan. And even if you don't have kids in school right now, how well our kids in the state are being educated and how they stack up to the rest of the country affects all of us. So coming up tonight, we'll take a look at the next steps the Detroit public school system needs to take and what the new superintendent has to do to have a successful year. Plus, you hear from Michigan Superintendent about how teachers should be evaluated and supported in the classroom. Also coming up, you'll see how teachers in Oakland County are being trained to be more understanding of the changing racial and cultural makeup of their students. And one family's journey with school choice takes them far away from their neighborhood district. It's all coming up. So let's get started with our MiWeek contributors Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson as we debate what Detroit public schools need to do to consider this school year a success. I'd argue that education in the state of Michigan is one of the most important things that we should be focusing on in the next year. So in this time of back to school, let's take a look at a couple of places where we're at with education in Michigan. I want to start with Detroit Public Schools because it feels like everyone is going to be watching them this year. They have a new superintendent, Nikolai Vitti, who has been really out in front in the press. We've learned a lot about him, how passionate he is about special ed, how much he wants to support teachers in the classroom and make sure that they have enough teachers in the classroom and maintain the students, the population that they have right here. Nolan, I'm going to start with you on what you think DPS needs to do this year to consider itself successful.
Well, it's a long way from being able to declare itself successful. I mean, to consider itself on its way to success, I think we'll see next week when kids start piling back into the classrooms whether he can hold and stabilize the enrollment. I think stabilizing the enrollment is essential for the viability of the school district. Can't lose any more students. Already lost too many. I think he's got to get first-rate teachers in the classroom. And I'm worried with this challenge of hiring so many teachers at once that he won't be able to get the sort of teachers he said he was going after. And you know, once you hire the teacher, they're there. And so you've got to live with them for years. And so I think teacher recruitment is and stabilizing enrollment are the #1 goals. And
I think you also look at the amount of teachers who are close to retirement age as well in the district, and you'd be losing kind of that institutional knowledge in the next couple of years. So the cycle of keeping and hiring and making sure that you're getting that best talent will always be a continual struggle.
It will, and it always has been a struggle for Detroit. That combined with, you know, I mean, if you look at the conditions that teachers are asked to put up with in the schools, if you look at their pay and their benefits, which have always sort of been under assault, I mean, we haven't given people a really great reason to want to go be a teacher in Detroit. And I think he's focused on trying to you know, change that equation. He did put some more money into salaries through the contract. He's putting more people into the classroom who already work for the school district, right? I mean, people who are doing administrative jobs. That helps teachers too, because it gets, you know, to the class size issue to somewhat. I've been really impressed by Vitti so far. I was not knocked over by his selection and the candidates we had. I thought we could have had a higher notch of hopefuls there, but boy, he's really focused in on the work. He has done some things early that make a lot of sense, and he's saying all the right things about what he wants to do to, like you say, stabilize the population and grow teaching. But, you know, we got to be patient too, right? That's not going to sort itself out in the next 12 months.
Right. What do you need to hear, though, as a parent, Nolan, from him or from, you know, staff at the school that your child attends saying, gosh, I made the right decision to be at this school instead of the school hopping that I think that we see in the Detroit School District?
I think the first thing parents are looking for is order in the schools and stability in the schools. They need to know their kid's going to go sit in a classroom in front of a teacher, and that the school is going to be under control. There's going to be a good, strong principal in charge. There's going to be a plan for the child and for every classroom. I think they're just looking for an orderly process first, and then strong academic programs and everything else you would expect in a school. But again, I think it all starts with the caliber of teachers you're able to recruit. I think, you know, you always hear the business community saying, how can we help? What should we do? And you know, I think there's a willingness in the business community to help. I think one idea they should explore is establishing a fairly substantial bonus pool to attract the best teachers and retain good teachers who are now leaving. I mean, the churn is incredible. I mean, it's not an across the board here, everybody gets a check, but we recognize that there are some very good teachers we want to attract and keep, and so here's some extra money.
I mean, the best teachers in a place like Detroit should be making six figures, right?
Yes,
I mean,
anywhere.
Or anywhere, right? But especially in places like Detroit where it's tougher, where what we ask them to do is far more difficult than it is in other districts. And we've got that equation upside down. You make far more money if you go out to a really high-performing district with really wealthy families who are not sending kids to school with quite the same challenges, and that doesn't make
They're sending
a lot
kids
of
to school that have already so much support services that come along with them or that have been with them since the beginning.
That's right.
And there's almost this more of a successful track
And it's
there.
not that those teachers don't deserve to be rewarded too, but we reward them and don't reward the teachers who are really doing
That's why I think,
kind of work.
You know, that's why I think until the finances become rosier and you have more stability in the district, a bonus pool would help. It would help keep teachers, but it also, if you could say, look, come to Detroit, you're a top-rate teaching school graduate, you get 15 grand coming in the door, and in 5 years or 3 years or 2 years, there's more money if you stay.
What about some of the support services that come along with the school system, and when we do talk about special ed and what resources are available for kids at DPS?
Yeah, we've done a horrible job with that in Detroit for a really long time for lots of different reasons, and I think VD will learn really quickly that that's not an easy solve, right? There are things that happen for reasons that he can't just flip a switch to change, but there again, there is this focus that he has on it, right? Because of his background, his understanding of the challenges that come with these support services. I think he's again gonna move the ball on that, but it's not all going to happen in a short period of time.
No, there's going to be a little bit of patience, and I think we need to see where things kind of go. Let's talk a little bit about kind of as on the whole, looking at Michigan as well and what the plans are coming out of Lansing. And when we talk about statewide, our education, I mean, I think Detroit gets dumped on a whole lot, and obviously they have the toughest problems in the state and have been historically. But you have districts that are struggling all around Michigan right now.
Well, every single district's underperforming their peers in other states, and I think, you know, the governor has said the last year or so of his tenure, he's going to be bringing bills to the table to, you know, with the hopes of improving education. I mean, we have tried just about everything in this state over the last 20 years, and we haven't been able to stick to anything. And so I think the important thing now is if we come up with a plan and a strategy to stick to it for more than 2 years.
That's what I was going to say, because I feel like we hear multiple plans. Like every couple of years, they roll out a great study that we just paid X amount of hundreds of $1,000s for and said, well, it shows us this. And we're like, well, maybe we don't totally like those results, but we're going to figure out how to do it.
We know what's wrong, and there are other places who are fixing the things that are wrong here, and we just don't have the political commitment to do it.
What do you think that we need to tackle this year statewide when we're looking at education, Stephen?
Boy, that list is really, I think that list is really long.
Give me a top
I would
three.
say that you need to sort out the assessment mess that we have with teachers. I mean, we sort of still fits and starts on how to do that. I still think that the funding model we have for schools in this state, which doesn't look like almost any other state. If you go around the country, almost everyone has moved away from this idea that local property taxes are the primary source of funding for schools. There are far more ways to get to some parity, and by parity I don't mean dollar for dollar, this kid gets the same as that kid, but each kid is getting what they need. We can't even get that conversation started in Michigan. And we're 23 years now past Prop A, the last time we did it. That's a long time. Almost everybody else has revisited that question in the interim.
I think we have to stop working around a broken governance structure. No other state has a bifurcated governance structure like this, where the governor's in charge of education and the state school board is in charge of education, and they're not, they're not joined at all.
Yeah.
There's no one in charge. Technically, the governor is, because he controls the purse strings, but not really. I think you need a streamlined, accountable process, and then you got the legislature all the time meddling in education policy, apart from both the governor and the school board. I think until we can come in some unified fashion to this problem, we're not going to solve it.
I think we also have to make a decision that we're all on the same page when it comes to standardized testing in the state as well, and looking at the M-STEP, and now there's some talk about changing the amount of testing.
Years.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's something that we're all going to be talking as well. But so much to tackle this year. We're going to have to see how it all works out. And there are many things to consider when teachers step into the classroom and are charged with helping every single child achieve. As our schools become more diverse, it's important that both students and teachers are aware of racial, cultural, and ethnic differences. The Detroit Journalism Cooperative, along with our One Detroit Bureau, takes a look at one program in Oakland County where teachers are learning to better relate to their multicultural students. Ed Moore has the story.
Comes difference, right? With difference comes conflict.
It's 1 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon in West Bloomfield, Michigan. School is in session, but this class isn't for students. This class is for teachers.
To me, to say that we have an achievement gap, particularly when we're talking about students of color and poverty, as opposed to there being something inherently wrong with the system that educates these students.
We are inside a cultural competence training session, which is designed to develop understanding and effective methods for teachers. They become more familiar with identifying and solving unintentional culture clashes within the shifting landscape of the diverse student population.
We're becoming aware of things that we either weren't able to see or we're able to ignore in ways that we can't do anymore. The more a teacher is aware of how these issues are brought into the classroom, the more effective the teacher can be in maximizing student learning.
In the past decade alone, West Bloomfield's African American population has soared 120%. Nationally, the 2014-2015 school year was the first time in America's history that white students in public schools were not the racial majority.
The demographic shifts are no longer coming. Diversity is no longer coming. It's here. They know when they walk in that school or when they walk in certain classrooms in that building, they have to park parts of their culture in the hallway or on the street because it's not welcome in the building.
Dr. Jay Marks is an educational consultant of diversity and equity for Oakland County Schools. He trains teachers in the district of the importance of multicultural proficiencies in the ever-evolving school environment.
Students of color, African American students, Hispanic, Latino, and students of poverty are disproportionately placed in special education and remedial courses compared to their white and Asian peers, who are disproportionately placed in advanced placement, honors, and college prep courses.
Creating best practices for educators to become culturally responsive, benefiting the students as well as the teacher.
We just don't know enough about one another. And when we don't know enough about one another, we don't gain understanding. In the dynamics of difference, these are cultural differences that sometimes that could lead to conflict.
By many census accounts, the racial demographic of this country will shift by 2040, and those who identify as white racially or ethnically will be the racial minority in this country. This training allows educators, many of whom are traditionally middle-class European American females, to bring awareness of differing cultures, ethnicities, and diversities into the classroom.
Can you teach students who don't look like you, who don't love like you, who don't walk like you, who don't pray like you, who don't live like you, effectively?
What we are asking teachers to do is we want to create kids who are ready for a global society. And that's all of our kids, because they're going to have to negotiate a culture that's very different.
By exploring the importance of cultural training, these instructors are introduced to new strengths in addressing issues arising from cultural situations.
It's an interesting challenge to be a privileged white middle-aged, middle-class plus guy with a diverse group of students.
So these workshops help reinforce how you can apply it in the real life situation, in the classroom, in the real world.
The training empowers educators with a hypersensitive perspective of teaching methods and philosophies, leading to increasing conflict resolution and identifying misunderstandings.
It reminds me that I need to really look at the holistic aspect of encountering the student as an individual, as a person who has a set of different backgrounds.
By focusing on the 5 skilled areas, awareness and acceptance of differences, knowledge of the student's culture, self-awareness, dynamics of difference, and adaptation of skills, teachers exploring hidden bias and colorblindness, which can lead to disproportionality in the way they instruct individual students.
Culture competence leads to more effective teaching because we begin to embrace culture. We begin to acknowledge it. We begin to accept it. We begin to understand it so that we can embed it in our teaching and practices.
Accountability and direction for our schools in Michigan come from a few different places: the governor's office, as well as the state elected school board and State Superintendent Brian Whiston. Now, Whiston has helped lay out a plan to tackle the achievement gap in schools, as well as map out what kind of help the state's struggling schools will get. I spoke with him at the Mackinac Policy Conference this year about improvements that need to be made and how teachers can be supported.
We're somewhere in the bottom third of states in terms of performance, and we have to really do better. We owe it to our students, our taxpayers, to do better. So where are we starting to see some improvement? We're starting to see improvement in some reading and writing scores, starting to see improvement in terms of multiple pathways for students. Very excited working with the governor on some career tech options for students. We've gone from a handful of programs to more than 100 programs where kids are going to high school and getting college credit, graduating with up to a 2-year college degree as part of their high school experience. So we're starting to see improvement across the board and really going to deeper learning in the classroom. You have districts going to competency-based education, which really looks at, let's not talk about what age a kid is or what grade they are, but where are they at academically?
Kind of meet them at their level.
Yeah, right, and let them progress either slower or faster than what we would say in a traditional sense. And let students drive that, not us.
So let's talk about teachers, the kind of training that you believe that they're getting right now. Are we training our teachers the best possibly that we can? And are we giving them a chance to succeed and giving them the support they need instead of walking into a classroom with 35 first graders and saying, you've got to make sure that all of these kids are able to read at that certain benchmark level by the end of the year. Good luck.
Right. Both the State Board's 10 and 10 plan and the Governor's 21st Century Education Commission call for changes in how we prepare teachers for success in the classroom. We really need to go to a more of a medical model, I like to say, where students in school who want to become teachers learn it in a classroom and then implement it right away instead of going through a class and then implementing it a year or 2 or 3 years later. So if they're learning how to teach kids to read, they'd learn that in their college course and then they're immediately working in a school helping to input that learning that they got. So we're looking at making changes to more of a medical model. Secondly, we want to change so that when they graduate, they're one level of teacher and they can move up several steps to becoming a master teacher. And those things they would have to accomplish at each level to become that master teacher. And so we do need to make changes how we prepare. We know that we're heading into a teacher shortage. We have a lot less, about 50% less people going into education as a profession.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons. One, I think education's been under attack for the last decade, so that's one reason. Second reason is pay, because we had a kind of a bad decade and schools had to cut. So there's a lot of school districts are hiring teachers at the 28 to 32,000 range. Why would someone want to graduate with a $100,000 debt and take a job that pays so little? I mean, all my kids were very blessed to go to college and graduate and start jobs in the 50, 60,000. So as people look at careers, I think the education's been under attack. Starting pay of teachers has been an issue. So I think we have to address and honor that and really bring the honor of once upon a time, a day, being a teacher was an honored profession, and we have to return to that.
When we talk about kids going back to school, not everyone goes to the neighborhood school around the corner. Many families take advantage of school of choice, not just within their districts. Some have a pretty big commute, and it's all to make sure that their kids succeed in an environment that they are most comfortable in. Here's Ed Moore with the Detroit Journalism Cooperative.
They're seasoned commuters. Twins Najee and Najee Coleman live in Canton in western Wayne County.
We go to River Rouge High School, and it's a really good school.
The two high school seniors have been traveling 30 miles each way cross-county for the past 2 years just to go to school.
I wake up at 4, she wakes up at 3. We get ready, and then we take a long journey to Rouge, which is like 40 minutes. So we get in the car at around, I say 6.
Michigan's schools of choice policy has created a lot of commuter students. But the twins' story is remarkable because of where they've traveled to get here.
And so the twins are just an example of what happens here. Kids feel comfortable.
Terrence Wheeler directs community outreach for the River Rouge School District.
They want to be here all day. We have to literally put kids out of the building at 7:30, 8 o'clock because they have to go home. But kids don't want to go home because they feel comfortable. They feel that adults care about them.
River Rouge sits on the fringe of southwest Detroit. Downriver, the economy trying to hang on, predominantly African American. Meanwhile, the school district is on the upswing, recruiting students from other cities, from Inkster, Highland Park, Detroit, and nearby Ecorse. And then there are the twins from Canton.
We were thinking we'd go to Canton, graduate from there, and then I guess things change, and I'm happy with the change.
Canton's public schools rank high academically, and while the schools are integrated, with Asian and African Americans making up about 20%, the students and teachers are mostly white. The twins went to Canton High School to start, but didn't stay long.
I wasn't comfortable at all. In the classroom, it was no one my skin color.
My daughters hated it. They hated it.
The twins' mother, Kimberly Coleman, had considered the academics and always been planning for college. The twins' grades were always good, but after transferring to Canton, their grades dropped.
It was just very negative. Every day that they came home from school, it was not a happy moment. They didn't have anything to express, like, you know, I had a good time, or this teacher did this, or, you know, kids, they got a story to tell, but they didn't have those type of stories.
Well, no one ever asked me, how do I feel? I don't even think anyone even talked to me there.
The twins lasted only a term, having come over from nearby Westland. They'd also felt uncomfortable there, but then came the one moment that changed everything.
What made me pull them out of John Glenn was the fact that an assistant principal told my daughter Najee, you don't have to go to college. That's not necessary. Everybody's not fit for college. And I'd never heard anybody as a principal or an educator, period, tell a child that. You know, and I was like, where did that come from?
We got to get out of here. We want to go to college. What do you mean we not? College is not for everybody. Like, what do you mean? It should be for everybody. That should be your goal, to make sure everybody gets to college.
This is not a surprise to Stephanie Rowley, who studies the dynamics of race in schools. She chairs the combined program in education and psychology at the University of Michigan.
In my case, my sister, my brother, and I all got similar messages, whether it was we should consider community college, we should live at home and go to a local college that was less prestigious, from our counselors, and the implication was, as Black students, that we probably couldn't handle an out-of-state or an elite school. So my brother and I both came to Michigan. My sister went to St. Louis University, all out of state, and our white counterparts certainly were not getting those messages.
College papers.
Now the twins are trying to figure out just where they want to go to college. But just what is the best path for success? Studies show schools with better academics, schools like Canton, will lead to better outcomes, regardless of race. But there's a cost if students feel discriminated against.
There's a huge amount of research showing that experiencing discrimination in school is related to lower motivation, poor quality mental health outcomes, and things like that.
River Rouge High School is not academically top-ranked yet, but the district's focus on the needs of families who also want their kids to go to college is building a bigger student body.
You have to do what's best by your child. If that means that I'm gonna drive my child 45 minutes away, I'm gonna do what's best for my child, because I know from a comfort standpoint, they're gonna grow. I will be at peace while I'm at work. When you look at social and emotional learning, kids should be comfortable going to school. If you have a negative connotation towards this kid because of their skin tone, you're not extracting their potential.
And that'll do it for our look at education this week. Head to MiWeek.org for more on our One Detroit stories and continuing coverage. We'll be back next Thursday. Have a great weekend. We'll see you then.
Did you know Gordon Food Service was started by a 23-year-old entrepreneur as a butter and egg delivery business more than a century ago? In 1948, school teacher Gerard Wendell Hayworth borrowed $10,000 from his parents to start a woodworking operation in his family's garage. It's now Hayworth Incorporated. These are just some of the ways Michigan's pioneers started out as small companies with big ideas.
We are business leaders for Michigan. We are committed to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding for this program is provided by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing.